This morning. I got my coffee. I was planning on doing a regular old Facebook, YouTube live to answer questions, and I actually had it all set up so that you could click a link and hop on and be live next to me and get your question answered. But then as I was sipping my coffee and I was looking at the news, I saw this story and it kind of caught my attention, and it made me stop and read about it. And what came out just yesterday is that in Los Angeles, the school's chief has said that before students can return to school, they'll have to have their COVID vaccine. And this just caught me by surprise. One, because we don't have a COVID vaccine for children yet. And two, because it seems like quite the measure. And so I kind of pondered it. And then I was like, well, I want to talk about this because it's something that a lot more people are going to see today and have questions about. And I kind of want to share my thoughts on it. Now, these are just my thoughts, but I think it's a bad idea. That is going to be the bottom line. And there's a few reasons for that. One, I totally get that parents are worried about their kids in school, that the vaccine that we have for adults is safe and effective. I got mine. I got my second dose last week. My arm was a little sore for a day after the first one, and I didn't even have any arm soreness after the second one. Probably it might be different for me because I did have COVID a few months ago. So I think the majority of people that I hear have sore arm both times, and that's about it. Maybe some fatigue or something like that. But what I know is that, well, I got off track. Sorry. I didn't really rehearse my thoughts very much. Parts of the country are really bad right now, and we need that vaccine to get out to as many adults as possible, especially at-risk populations, because we know that they're the ones that are most likely to get hospitalized, most likely to die, and we need to protect them first and foremost. Secondly, we need to stop the community spread so that we can stop it spreading around communities and causing so much illness and hospitalizations and deaths. Those, I think, are the primary purposes for the vaccination program at this point in January of 2021. We will work our way out and at some point be able to provide vaccines to children for COVID, but we're talking a while. I mean, they have to do all the studies. They have to work their way down in age. They have to get emergency use authorization. They have to distribute it. And we're talking a very slow vaccine rollout so far. They had said, and there had been reports that we'll have, herd immunity by April or May or something like that. Well, that would require us to give 10 times as many vaccines per day as a country as we are right now. Nebraska is actually doing quite well in getting the vaccine out compared to a lot of other states, but we still have a long way to go. And I had seen a statistic after a few weeks that there had been 2 million doses administered, which sounds amazing. Wow, 2 million. But if you think about that in the context of the whole country and our population, that's a really small amount. And that was after several weeks of the vaccine initially being distributed. And they were saying that we need to vaccinate 2 or 3 million people per day to have adequate rates to lead to herd immunity by the summer. And so we really need to ramp that up. There already are supply shortages. Kids are always at the last in line for everything when it comes to medications, new therapies, everything like that. One, because there's not as much money in it as there is for adults, and two, because we want to be really careful and safe and make sure that the vaccine is safe and effective in adults. But is there anything different about children that makes it not as effective or not as safe? We still have to figure all those things out, and that's going to take time and a lot of trials and then watching and waiting to figure out. And so in January of 2021 say kids can't come back to school until they get coronavirus vaccine, I mean, that's when you're putting all the desks, you already probably have chairs on top of the desks. You're going to be closing down classrooms and making putting dust covers over everything because it's going to be a long time before kids are going to be back in school. And yes, Zoom online learning is possible, but it's not sustainable, and it was never meant to be sustainable. And I think that we're going to have a lot more issues with families having literally no end in sight to online learning with this announcement. There's just, at this point, not enough data that says that schools are such a dangerous place that we can't safely figure out how to keep kids in schools. And I'm wondering if that's your experience too. And as I take a sip of coffee, if this has been helpful so far, would you just hit the like button, because it helps me to know that like I'm on the right track and giving good information. And if you have a question or a comment, just drop it in the comments below. I'll try and either answer it right now or get back to you in the coming days, because I think this will generate some interest and some discussion. But if it's been helpful so far, or if at least it's making sense, hit the like button below while I take a sip of my second coffee of the morning. Now, thank you. I see plenty of likes coming in. I have lost my train of thought again. We don't even have adequate numbers for adults at this point. We are going to have to do trials for kids. As you know, if you followed me for even a hot minute, you know that I'm very pro-vaccine and work to get vaccine to all children and dispel myths about vaccines. I have a whole YouTube series. If you haven't watched it yet, it's drb.show/vaccine, where you can learn from me. I talk about, mostly recorded in my car, how vaccines work, how the coronavirus vaccine works, the safety and effectiveness, and all of those things. So I'm very much in favor of getting the vaccine out to as many people as possible. And I firmly believe that the only way we're going to come through this pandemic is with the COVID vaccine being distributed to a large number of people and them choosing to get the vaccine. I don't think that mandating it before return to school is an effective way to help people feel comfortable with the vaccine, especially if it means months and months and months of waiting and no end in sight. We are with this policy disenfranchising those that can't just continue to do online learning. Yes, there are plenty of people that have good jobs that can remote work and do fine, and it's annoying and it's not as effective, and the kids' grades aren't as good, and they're distracted, and all of those annoyances and struggles that are going on. But there are a lot of people whose income, who's putting bread on the table and keeping the lights on and a roof over their head, are dependent on them actually showing up at a physical job and doing physical work. And to say we can't let you do that work because you have to be at home with your child is going to be the nail in the coffin for a lot of those that are already at this moment struggling to figure out how to balance getting work done, to get paychecks, to keep food and lights and shelter, and to keep kids at home to do online learning. And if it was that dangerous, I think then there would be an argument for that. But locally, and plenty of places around the country have done exceedingly well with safely having kids be in school. Here locally, we have 40,000 some students in the local public school system. Everybody went remote in the beginning of the pandemic in the spring of 2020. Everybody has been back at school by and large. There certainly have been a percentage or two that have continued to do remote learning, but the vast majority have been in school. We haven't had tons of case transmission. We haven't had outbreaks that have required us to close schools for weeks to let everybody, phase out. We have kept kids safe. We have figured it out. It is not ideal. It is not ideal to have 5 and 6-year-olds wearing masks all day and being separated and all the different things. But the greater good is to have them in school when possible. And so we've decided that that's okay. And guess what? I did all these videos. Gosh, it was like Video Central in August of how are we going to get kids to stay in their masks? And this is going to be a huge headache. And how are we going to do it? And kids have done totally fine wearing masks. It has been zero issue. I haven't had a single parent that has called and said, you need to write me an exemption because my kid can't wear their mask all day, even if they have different medical conditions. I mean, there's some kids that it's a struggle, whether they have respiratory disease or developmental delays or something like that, that really they can't wear their mask. Well, everyone else is wearing the mask. So they're as safe as can be while not wearing the mask themselves because they have autism or cerebral palsy or neurological issues or respiratory issues that prevent them. That's a really small, tiny percentage of patients. And so it's okay if they can be in school and everyone else can be masked around them. They might be at a little bit higher risk, or they might have to be quarantined or something like that because of the not having a mask on, but they're still able to be in school. And I've had plenty of patients that can't wear masks that have been able to stay in school for the entire school year. And so to say that it's not safe and effective, we just don't have the local data. There just isn't national data that says it's dangerous. It leads to severe disease in children. It leads to community spread to a significant degree. I think by and large, what we're seeing with community spread is adults spreading it to other adults, and adults bringing it home from their places of work or from their outside activities that then are causing kids to get it in the family. And that's where most of the cases, the vast majority of the cases, have been when kids have gotten it. It's not at school from getting it from their pal that's sitting, 3 rows over or across the classroom or at the lunch table. There are those cases, but they're the minority of cases. The majority of cases in kids come from mom or dad has to work, or was out and exposed somehow, and mom or dad got it, and then kids got it. And then we were able to quarantine them and keep the rest of the classroom safe. We haven't even had to do a lot of in-classroom quarantines because everyone's wearing masks, and there isn't a lot of transmission going on. So even if one kid in the class has COVID diagnosed, it doesn't mean that the whole class has to stay home for 2 weeks. That's just not how it's worked, nor has it been how it's had to be. And so this is getting long. But I really think that it's an important message that we talk through. And as pro-vaccine as I am, I don't think that it benefits children, parents, families, or communities to have to say we can't return to school until every kid in school has had the vaccine. That's going to cause a lot of kids to not be in school because there's a lot of mistrust about the vaccine. And I've talked in plenty of videos about that. And some of it is hogwash from Facebook and Twitter and all of those places. But there are legitimate concerns about the vaccine in some populations. I know that there's a lot of people, especially those minorities and black people in particular, who are thinking about Tuskegee and those sort of terrible atrocities that were committed and having hesitancy. And I can understand why you would be hesitant if that was the case. Like, those are things that we're going to have to work through as a country to help people feel comfortable with the vaccine, and to say nobody can return to school until you get the vaccine that has just been developed recently. I mean, I will look at the research and provide my input, and I imagine that they will, before anybody authorizes it, that it will have shown to be just as safe in kids as in adults, and then we'll push and educate and try and get everybody the vaccine as soon as possible. It's going to take some time. Parents ask me every day, when are we going to get the vaccine for me as the parent? And I'm thinking like Q2, hopefully. When are we going to get the vaccine for my kid? Probably Q4. I just can't imagine things moving that quickly with the supply chain the way it's been, with the trials ongoing, with having to work down and say, okay, it's safe in this group. Is it safe in the next group? In the younger group? Is it safe in the younger group? Is it not safe in the younger group? To get all the way down to the kindergarten age group, let alone 2, 3, 4-year-olds and younger babies and everything like that. That's going to take a lot of time. And that is okay. And I think that we should feel okay about it taking a long time because we know that there's safe measures that we can do to keep kids safe. We know that the disease in children, by and large, and I'm talking by and large meaning nearly every case, is asymptomatic, mild disease. There's very few that are requiring hospitalization or having the scary Kawasaki-like multi-system inflammatory syndrome in children. Yes, that is scary to read about and think about. And if you know some child that's had that, or some family that's been affected by it, it's really scary, but also very rare. And so this has been really long-winded. What do you think? I would love to hear your thoughts on this. It just seems to me that this is going to cause a lot of unnecessary burden on families and on children and on teachers and on school staff and the community and on employers if we can't move forward even into the 2021 to 2022 school year without mandating that children get the vaccine. So those are my thoughts. Share with me. I would love to hear your thoughts, whether you agree or disagree. I love to see comments. If you have appreciated this video and feel like it has at least opened your eyes to some of the issues that we're facing or clarified something, clicking the like button would be the most helpful thing ever for me. And leave your comments or questions. And like I said, I was going to do a live. I try and do lives at least every week where I answer questions. Check out my YouTube video if you want to see past questions that I've answered. If you have a question, you can text me. It's 402-256-0768. And keep up the good work. And I hope this has helped spark conversation and brings peace and clarity to you as we move through this just ongoing marathon, this marathon that just won't stop. But I think that the vaccine is the light at the end of the tunnel. I think that we're going to be in a much better place by 6 months from now and 9 months from now. But I just don't think we're going to be there for restarting school in person in September if these mandates are required before kids can get back into the building. And I don't think it's necessary. Keep up the good work.